Mount Vesuvius has been silent for decades. Not a single eruption since 1944. That's the longest break in its entire documented history. But that silence, it's starting to sound more like a warning. Because recently, the volcano has started showing signs that it's waking up. And when a volcano like Vesuvius stirs, scientists and emergency officials don't shrug it off, they sound the alarms.
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
This isn't some forgotten relic from ancient history. This is an active, dangerous volcano sitting right next to one of the most densely populated urban regions in Europe. Over 3 million people live within reach of its worst-case scenario. And now, the ground around it is rising, small earthquakes are being recorded, and gas emissions are increasing. These aren't random events. They're signs of unrest, clear, measured signals that something is happening deep beneath the surface. Vesuvius is one of the most closely watched volcanoes in the world, and for good reason. Its history is devastating. Everyone knows about the 79 AD eruption that wiped out Pompeii, but that was just one of many. Eruptions in 472 AD, 1631, 1906, and 1944 have all proven one thing: Vesuvius doesn't erupt often, but when it does, the results are catastrophic. The structure of Vesuvius makes it especially dangerous. It's built like a layer cake of destruction, multiple calderas, a complex internal system of magma chambers stacked over one another, and an underground network that connects it to nearby volcanic areas like Campi Flegrei. Scientists have recently confirmed what many suspected: these two volcanoes might actually share a magma reservoir. That means pressure in one could influence the other. That adds another layer of uncertainty and risk to an already volatile situation. What's particularly alarming about the current phase of unrest is that it's not just one signal, it's a combination. Microquakes, uplift, and gas release all increasing at once. That's a pattern. GPS measurements show that the ground is rising by several centimeters in some areas. That kind of deformation is usually linked to magma moving closer to the surface. It's subtle, yes. But in volcanology, subtle is everything. The seismic activity is equally concerning. These aren't major quakes, but they're consistent and increasing. They're the type of tremors that happen when rock fractures under pressure, usually caused by magma forcing its way upward. On their own, any of these signs might not trigger widespread concern. Together, though, they form a very different picture. One that suggests Vesuvius is no longer stable. The chemistry of the magma beneath Vesuvius also adds to the risk. It's silica-rich and highly viscous, which means it traps gases easily. That gas builds pressure, and when it finally escapes, it doesn't just bubble out, it erupts violently. That's why Vesuvius is known for explosive events. The longer the buildup, the more dangerous the release. And then there's the human side of the equation. Over 3 million people live within the broader region, and at least 600,000 reside in the official red zone areas that would be most immediately affected in the event of an eruption. Authorities do have evacuation plans. The idea is to move people out within 72 hours if an alert is triggered. But let's be honest, that plan is based on a best-case timeline. The roads around Vesuvius are narrow and frequently congested. The infrastructure wasn't built for mass evacuations. And when panic sets in, which it will, the system could break down fast. 3 days might sound like enough time, but with traffic jams, limited exits, and aging infrastructure, the evacuation could stretch far longer. That's a massive risk, especially when the volcano could go from unrest to eruption in a matter of hours under the right conditions. Even a smaller scale eruption would have serious consequences. A subplinian event, which isn't even the worst case scenario, could still send ash high into the atmosphere. That ash would ride the jet stream, spreading across Italy and into the rest of Europe. Airports would shut down. Flights would be cancelled. Ash would coat buildings, roads, and power lines. Hospitals could lose functionality. Communication systems could fail. And depending on wind direction, cities far from Vesuvius could feel the impact. And while we're on the topic of ash, people often underestimate how damaging it can be. It's not just dusty air. Volcanic ash is made up of sharp, microscopic glass particles. It clogs machinery, damages engines, and contaminates water supplies. It causes respiratory issues. It shuts down daily life. And if the ashfall is heavy enough, roofs can collapse under the weight. Even if lava never reaches Naples, the city could still suffer devastating consequences just from what falls from the sky. Now, despite all the technology in place, seismic sensors, satellite imaging, gas monitors, there's still no way to say exactly when an eruption will happen. That's the problem with volcanoes like Vesuvius. You can know that pressure is building. You can observe the signs. But you can't say whether it will erupt tomorrow or in 10 years. That uncertainty is what keeps scientists on edge. But uncertainty doesn't mean inaction. The increasing signs of unrest aren't being ignored. Researchers are monitoring changes around the clock, constantly updating models and tracking every quake, every puff of gas, every centimeter of uplift. But the truth is, even with all the data, predictions can only go so far. The internal system is just too complex. Deep magma reservoirs, unpredictable gas behavior, and interconnected cauldrons all make it nearly impossible to pinpoint when things will escalate. The connection to Campi Flegrei makes it even harder. That volcano has been experiencing its own signs of unrest. So now, scientists are watching two volcanoes, not one, both capable of devastating eruptions, both showing signs of instability. And if one goes off, it could disturb the shared magma system enough to awaken the other. That's not speculation. It's a possibility backed by recent geophysical imaging and decades of research. So where does that leave Naples? Caught between history and geology, between past destruction and present risk. The city is vibrant, dense, and full of life, but it's also sitting on the edge of a volcano that's long overdue for its next eruption. And while the people living there have learned to live with the risk, the current phase of unrest is different. The signals are there. And they're growing stronger. This isn't fear-mongering. It's reality. Volcanoes don't send engraved invitations. They send smoke, earthquakes, and swelling ground. And right now, Vesuvius is doing all three. That doesn't guarantee an eruption, but it means ignoring the danger would be a mistake. And it raises the bigger question, are we really prepared? Do the evacuation plans hold up under real-world conditions? Can scientists get enough warning in time? Will people listen when the alert comes? These are questions no one can fully answer until the volcano makes its next move. But one thing is certain, Vesuvius is not quiet anymore. The ground is moving. The gases are rising. The volcano is stirring. And as history has shown us time and again, when Vesuvius wakes up, the consequences are never small. If you want to stay updated on stories like this, real-world chaos, scientific intrigue, and global ripple effects, hit that subscribe button. Share this with someone who still thinks Vesuvius is just a tourist site, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Should more be done right now to prepare? Is Europe ready for this kind of disaster? We'll be watching. So should you. Because the next chapter of this volcano's story may already be writing itself underground. Here's what makes Vesuvius truly terrifying. It doesn't need to erupt to remind the world. It's still a threat. The signs alone are enough to send shivers down the spines of anyone paying attention. You've got scientists clocking microquakes like a geologic heartbeat, measuring the subtle rise of the land like breath returning to a sleeping monster. Every centimeter of uplift, every tremor deep beneath the earth, is a signal that pressure is building. The volcano is adjusting. It's thinking. And the world is watching. We are not dealing with just a geological curiosity here. This is the most dangerous volcano in continental Europe, sitting smack in the middle of a densely populated area. Naples isn't on the outskirts of risk, it's right in the middle of it. The suburbs stretch up the slopes. Tourists wander across ancient ruins, not realizing they're standing on disaster history. Families live their lives, raise their kids, go to work right next to one of the most explosive volcanic systems in the world. And while yes, people have learned to live with that risk, things are shifting now. For years, Vesuvius was studied, monitored, and treated with respect. But it also lulled people into a sense of routine. It didn't erupt. It looked calm. But volcanologists know the truth. The longer the dormancy, the more volatile the comeback. Let's talk about magma again, because this part is crucial. The kind of magma underneath Vesuvius is not the slow-moving, flowy stuff you might be picturing. It's thick. It's gas-rich. It traps pressure like a shaken soda bottle. And once the cap comes off, it doesn't just dribble, it blasts. That's the kind of volcanic behavior that leads to pyroclastic flows, deadly, fast-moving clouds of ash, rock, and gas that can travel at highway speeds and flatten everything in their path. And the layout of Vesuvius. It's built to funnel destruction. The caldera is layered, complex, and shaped in a way that directs pyroclastic flows straight toward populated areas. You don't even need a massive eruption to see devastating results. The very shape of the volcano makes it efficient at delivering destruction to the worst possible places. So, you've got the physical warning signs mounting. You've got a volatile magma composition. You've got historical precedents that shows this volcano will erupt again. What you also have is a region that's incredibly hard to evacuate in time. There are evacuation plans. The red zone has been mapped, covering the highest risk areas. Around 600,000 people live in that zone. The plan is to move them all in 72 hours if an eruption seems likely. But let's be real for a moment. Do we really believe a mass evacuation of that scale can happen smoothly? Look at the region: narrow roads, dense urban planning, aging infrastructure. Even on a good day, traffic in and out of Naples is a headache. Now add panic, confusion, possible power outages, maybe some false alarms, or conflicting information. You get a logistical nightmare. It's not a drill, it's real people and real cars trying to outrun a volcano. And what if there isn't 72 hours of warning? What if the seismic activity escalates quickly, or magma rises faster than predicted? That's the fear. Because once the eruption starts, there is no turning back. Pyroclastic flows don't wait. Ash doesn't politely avoid major highways. The volcano goes when it wants, and it goes fast. Even a moderate eruption could cause regional catastrophe. Ash clouds rising into the stratosphere would be carried by prevailing winds across Europe. Planes grounded, air traffic disrupted. Airports shut down, not just in Italy, but across the continent. We saw a glimpse of this in 2010 with Eyjafjallajökull in Iceland. Now scale that up. The economic fallout from grounded flights alone would ripple across industries: transport, logistics, tourism, supply chains. And that's just one piece. Ash affects everything. It gums up engines. It cuts off electricity. It contaminates water supplies. It causes breathing problems, especially for children and the elderly. Hospitals could struggle to cope. Emergency services would be stretched thin. Schools would close. Public transport would grind to a halt. And the longer the eruption lasts, the deeper the damage goes. And if you're thinking, well, maybe the volcano will just go back to sleep, sure, that is possible. Volcanic unrest doesn't always lead to eruption. But that's the gamble. Because you're not betting on a random hill, you're gambling with one of the most explosive volcanoes on the planet, with millions of lives at stake. And then there's Campi Flegrei. It's not just a side note, it's part of this story. This neighboring caldera has also been showing signs of unrest. And new research suggests that Vesuvius and Campi Flegrei might actually be linked underground. A shared magma system, which means activity in one could affect the other. If Campi Flegrei experiences unrest, it could influence pressure dynamics under Vesuvius and vice versa. That's not theory. That's what the data is beginning to confirm. Now you're not watching a volcano, you're watching a system. A volatile, interconnected system beneath one of the most densely populated parts of Europe. This isn't just geological drama. This is a real-time high-stakes situation unfolding beneath homes, highways, and hospitals. And while monitoring technology has improved drastically, volcanoes still hold secrets. Scientists can't read them like open books. They interpret signs. They build models. They make their best predictions. But the Earth doesn't always cooperate. The ground might shift. The gases might spike. The magma might surge, and the warning time might not be enough. That's the core of the anxiety right now. Vesuvius is sending signals, and the people watching closest are starting to say it out loud. This volcano is showing all the signs of reawakening. It might take months. It might take years. Or the next earthquake might be the last warning anyone gets. The people in Naples know this. Many have lived their entire lives under the shadow of Vesuvius. The threat is normalized. It's part of life. But normalization doesn't mean safety. It just means people have adapted to the background noise. And right now, the volume is turning up. So what now? The authorities will keep running simulations. Scientists will keep crunching data. Emergency planners will keep reviewing evacuation routes. But the only thing that truly changes the outcome is time and how much of it we have left before Vesuvius makes its next move. No one can say for certain what will happen next. That's the truth. And it's why this story matters. Because it's not just about ancient history or hypothetical scenarios. It's about a living volcano with a record of devastation, showing signs that its long pause may be ending. This isn't entertainment. It's a warning. Not the loud, dramatic kind but the quiet, factual kind that creeps up over time and only feels urgent once it's too late. Because here's the final thing nobody wants to say out loud, but everybody knows deep down, if Vesuvius erupts, it will not be a controlled event. It will not be an organized disaster. It will be chaos. Emergency plans look good on paper. Evacuation models always assume everyone stays calm, listens to instructions, and leaves in an orderly line. But when a volcano shows visible signs of eruption, when the smoke is rising, the ground is trembling, and the news alerts start hitting phones, panic is going to take over. It always does. And how could it not? You're talking about people who've grown up in the shadow of a volcano that destroyed entire civilizations. Generations remember the stories. They've seen the black and white footage from 1944. They've walked through the preserved ruins of Pompeii. They know what this mountain is capable of. So when the warnings come, people won't wait for instructions. They'll run. They'll drive. They'll clog every road trying to escape, all at once. That's when things fall apart. Authorities estimate 600,000 people would need to be evacuated from the high-risk red zone alone. That doesn't count the rest of Naples and its surrounding towns, millions more, all potentially impacted by ash, earthquakes, or infrastructure collapse. Moving that many people quickly, safely, and effectively is nearly impossible under the best conditions. And under pressure, it could turn into a disaster within a disaster. This is why scientists are raising their voices now. Because once the eruption starts, options narrow dramatically. The lead up, the period we're in right now, is the only real window to prepare. That's when communication matters. That's when emergency services run drills. That's when the public needs to actually listen. Because volcanoes don't offer do-overs. And even if no lava ever reaches the city, the ash alone is a public health emergency. Volcanic ash doesn't just fall and blow away like dust. It sticks. It accumulates. It chokes the air. It turns roads into slippery hazards. It contaminates reservoirs and water systems. Even in areas not directly hit by lava or pyroclastic flows, hospitals will see an influx of patients with breathing issues. Municipal systems could fail. Electricity grids might go down. Food and fuel supply chains could be disrupted for days or weeks. And that's just from a moderate eruption. A major one could black out southern Italy and beyond. The scale of impact grows exponentially the longer the eruption lasts. There's also the economic factor. Naples is a hub of culture, history, shipping, tourism, commerce. Shut it down, and you're not just affecting Italy. You're hitting global trade routes. You're disrupting European travel. You're watching billions in losses stack up by the day, not the month. That's the real weight of this moment. It's not just about watching a volcano. It's about watching a high-risk, high-stakes scenario where the margin for error is razor-thin. Every sign we're seeing, the ground rising, the quakes increasing, the gas emissions building, points to one thing: pressure. And with Vesuvius, pressure is the fuse. No one wants panic. No one's saying an eruption is guaranteed tomorrow. But the idea that we have time, that's not something anyone can promise. The volcano's current behavior is part of a pattern, one we've seen before, one that's written in layers of ash and buried cities. So here we are. A mountain with a reputation. A city built at its feet. The science is getting louder. The question now is whether people are listening. If this story hit you like it hit us, hit that subscribe button. Like the video. Share it with someone who needs to know what's going on. And drop a comment. Is the world underestimating this threat? Are we prepared for what Vesuvius might do next? Because one thing's for sure, the volcano is stirring. And we're all within earshot.